Welcome. We're diving deep into the life and lens of Robert Capa, without the usual reverence for boundaries. His work in war photography has sparked as many debates as it has acclaim. Let's begin. Henri, you've always sought the decisive moment, yet Capa's moments were amidst chaos. Your thoughts?
Chaos or not, it's the instinct that counts. But Capa, diving into the maelstrom of war, strikes me as a man more drawn to adrenaline than to the purity of capturing the essence of a moment. There's a fine line between bearing witness and indulging in the spectacle of suffering.
Henri, that's an oversimplification. Capa's work was about showing truth. War is chaos. It's his reality mirrored in his lens. If it's uncomfortable, it's because the truth often is. We can't shy away from that.
Both of you talk of truth, yet Capa's truth was subjective, created in the crucible of war. What's fascinating is his ability to make us feel, through a single frame, the enormity of what war embodies. A photograph is not just seen, it's felt. That was Capa's genius.
Feeling, yes, but what about desensitization? Capa brought war into the living room, but does this constant exposure numb us or awaken us? There's power in the image, no doubt, but where does this power take us?
Capa's so-called power, I believe, also romanticizes war to an extent. His images are gritty, yes, but there's an underlying allure, a dangerous beauty. It's a double-edged sword. We're drawn to the drama, even as we abhor the reality.
These are the tensions that Capa's work ignites. His lens did not flinch from the horrors of war, nor did it romanticize. Or did it? His images ask us to confront our own perceptions, our own reactions to war. This conversation is just the beginning. We dive into the ethical quagmire of war photography. Henri, your thoughts on capturing human agony through the lens?
To photograph people in their most vulnerable state, there's a fine line between bearing witness and exploitation. The decisive moment is not just about precision in timing, but also in moral judgment. We must ask ourselves, are we documenting or intruding?
But how can we show the truth if we shy away from the ugliness of it? Reality is not always pretty. It's our duty to capture it, to show the world what's happening beyond their cozy living rooms. Without Capa's unflinching gaze, many realities of war would remain unseen, unknown.
There's truth in your words, but where do we draw the line? It's a slippery slope.
The point isn't to glamorize or to horrify, but to inform. Capa brought war into the public eye with an honesty that hadn't been seen before. His work on D-Day wasn't comfortable viewing, but it was necessary.
Yet we must question the notion of authenticity in the chaos of war. Reality is subjective, especially in the throes of conflict. Capa's work blurs these lines, intriguingly so.
The responsibility, then, of the war photographer, where does it lie? In showing truth, sparking empathy, or maintaining integrity in the midst of chaos?
The responsibility lies in not distorting the narrative. Capa managed to capture the essence of conflict, but the real challenge is in preserving the dignity of his subjects, not merely in technical prowess or in braving the line of fire. And yet, if the essence of war's chaos is truthfully captured, staging becomes irrelevant. The emotional impact, the raw fear, and the adrenaline surge in those frames speak volumes beyond the mere circumstances of a shot.
Emotional truth, yes, but at what cost? The intrusion into private moments of pain and despair, I fear we risk becoming voyeurs of violence.
Without that intrusion, the public remains ignorant. Capa's lens forced the world to confront the brutal realities of war, pushing complacency aside. It's about awakening a collective conscience.
Art and war, they're both chaotic and unpredictable. Capa's genius was in making us see the order within the disorder, the human face within the inhumanity of war.
It seems then that our ethical boundaries are as individual as our art. Capa walked his line, a tightrope between necessity and exploitation, between truth and artifice. And so must we all in the pursuit of our craft and in the telling of humanity's stories, however harrowing. Let's dive into the heart of Capa's D-Day landing images and their pivotal role in photojournalism. His pictures there, some say, crystallize the essence of human suffering in war. Man, you see photojournalism as bridging reality and narrative. How do Capa's images from D-Day fit into this?
Capa's D-Day frames are not mere photographs. They are raw narratives carved into the annals of history. They weave the visceral truths of war into a visual dialogue that transcends time. His reliance on a contact too under such dire circumstances, where the fog of war reduced visibility both metaphorically and literally, crafts an art form that bridges the seen with the unseen, the told with the untold.
Authenticity. Those images slapped the public awake. For the first time, people were not just reading about war in their morning paper. They were seeing it, feeling it. But there's a question it raises. Have we become too accustomed to the sight of suffering?
It's not about desensitization, it's about confrontation. Capa forced people to confront the brutal reality of war, something far removed from their daily lives. There's a truth in that kind of shock, a reminder of the fragility of human life that you can't just turn the page on.
But at what price does this truth come? Prying into these moments of extreme vulnerability, I must wonder if we as photographers sometimes cross the line from observers to vultures feasting on the miseries of others. Henri, my friend, art, no life, is about crossing lines, about stirring the pot. Without Capa's audacity, many truths of war would have remained cloaked in the shadows of censorship and sugar-coated narratives. He didn't just photograph scenes, he photographed emotions, fears, the very souls of his subjects.
Yet, we cannot overlook the aestheticization of suffering. Capa's images are striking indeed, but do they run the risk of romanticizing war? It's a fine line between capturing truth and inadvertently glorifying the chaos and despair of war through the lens of photographic art.
This dialogue underscores the power and the paradox of Capa's work, its ability to humanize and simultaneously to mythologize. It raises fundamental questions about the role of photojournalism. Is it to inform, to evoke, to disturb? Perhaps Capa's legacy is that he managed to do all three, setting a precedent for all who followed. Let's dive into the evolution of combat photography, shaped profoundly by Robert Capa. His work not just documented but altered the public's perception of war. Thoughts?
Capa didn't just bring war into the living room, he turned it into a haunting presence. One could argue he transformed perception through sheer unflinching candidness. Before him, war had an air of distant nobility. Capa's lens stripped that bare.
True, but let's not romanticize. Photography before Capa wasn't devoid of truth. It was just more restrained. Capa's shift wasn't in showing war's reality, that's been done, but in how closely and personally he dared to approach his subjects. His Leica was less a camera, more a keyhole into the brutality of 20th century conflict. Both of you speak of his truthfulness, as if war's chaos can be neatly captured in gelatin silver. Capa's work pushed boundaries, but every frame is still a choice, a crop of reality. This is no pure, unblemished window into war.
Man's got a point. But let's not forget the technical side Capa revolutionized. He was out there, in the mud, under fire with a 35mm camera. His choice of equipment and film speed, his ability to keep shooting when anyone else would duck for cover, that's what set new standards.
Equipment aside, it was Capa's eye that changed everything. His photographs are not mere records, they are testimonials. Capa, with every shutter click, was asking, "Do you see?" He dragged the world's gaze to the suffering, made apathy untenable. Yet his eye, it sees what it wants to see. There's an artistry in Capa that borders on manipulation. The romanticism in his shots, doesn't it glamorize what should not be?
Glamorize? Hardly. If people see romance in the visceral reality of Capa's photos, that's a testament to their denial, not his intention. He laid bare the horrors, and if some chose to see heroism instead of human tragedy, that is their failing. A failing he exploited, perhaps unknowingly. Every photograph, no matter how candid, is a performance. The photographer chooses the stage.
Performance or not, Capa's innovations, his disregard for his own safety to get close enough, his rapid shooting style, they've influenced not just how war is photographed, but how it's perceived. Faster films, more spontaneous shots, his techniques showed the chaos of war as it truly is.
Chaos, yes, but at the heart of it, humanity. Capa's work speaks because it's deeply human. His photographs of D-Day, for instance, don't just show soldiers as warriors, but as frightened young men. This has shaped not just war photography, but how we memorialize conflict.
A debate as complex as the photographs we're discussing. Capa's work undoubtedly shifted the landscape of war photography, But that shift encompasses ethical conundrums, technical advancements, and a profound evolution in narrative portrayal. Each of you sees a different facet of his legacy, a testament to the depth of his impact. Let's jump right into the fray. The Falling Soldier by Capa has ignited debate on authenticity and staging in war photography. Man, your thoughts?
Authenticity is a bourgeoisie fantasy. The chaos of art, like war, is never tidy nor absolute. Capa captured an essence. Whether by chance or design, it communicates the dread of war. My experiments with rayographs weren't about the truth of the object, but its shadow. Similarly, Capa's soldier is the shadow of death looming over every combatant.
Disagree, man. The truth isn't something so easily brushed aside. Capa was there, in the trenches, amid the bullets and blood. If The Falling Soldier was staged, it undermines the raw horror he sought to depict. His work was about documenting reality, not constructing a narrative. There's a profound difference between fighting for a photograph amidst live fire and setting up a scene safe from the chaos of battle.
But art is not always about naked truth. It's the feeling, the haunting presence of what may or may not happen in war. Capa's work, staged or not, thrusts us into the immediacy of these emotions. Do we not craft our frames, choose our moments? Is that not, in its essence, a manipulation of reality?
Emotions, feelings. Henry, you're missing the point. It's the authenticity of the experience that matters. Capa's photos, staged or not, brought the brutality of war into the public eye. If he had to fabricate a scene to capture the essence of war's inhumanity, so be it. What's more important is the conversation it started, how it made people feel the war, not just know it.
The debate on authenticity is asinine. In fashion, we create scenes to evoke emotions. Capa did the same. The drama helps people connect, feel the bloody kiss of war's grim reality. Whether or not the soldier was truly in the throes of death or merely posed matters little. The end justifies the means.
So the crux of our debate, does the potential staging of The Falling Soldier detract from its emotional truth or historical accuracy? Can a photograph be both art and authentic documentation, or must it choose?
Art has never been about choosing sides. It exists in dualities. Capa's soldier, real or staged, is a monument to those dualities. Life and death, truth and narrative, art and reality.
But at what cost? If we lose our grasp on what's real, everything becomes suspect. The power of photojournalism lies in its ability to document, undeniably, what is. To blur these lines is a dangerous game.
Perhaps the real question is why we are so uncomfortable with ambiguity. Why must a photograph be only one thing or another? Life, like war, is rarely so clear-cut.
Exactly. It's about the impact, the gut reaction to the image. Capa's work does that. It hits you hard, forces you to confront the ugliness of war, staged or not.
Let's not be naive. All art is manipulation, whether it's through the lens, the brush, or the pen. Capa's photograph, irrespective of its authenticity, remains an icon of war's horror.
It seems then that our quest for truth in photography is as complex as the wars Capa sought to document. Perhaps the power of his work lies in its ability to spark this very debate. We begin our discourse on the balance between emotional impact and objective reporting in Capa's work. Capa once said, "If your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough." But where does this leave objectivity? Henry, your thoughts?
Objectivity, Diane, is a myth in photography. We choose what to capture, how to frame it. Yet Capa, in his pursuit of the human aspect of warfare, blurs lines we should perhaps not blur. His work, while profound, injects a level of subjectivity that can detract from the raw truth. We are reporters of life, not creators of narratives.
But isn't all art subjective? Capa's work shows us the truth through his eyes. It's his emotional engagement with the subject that brings those images to life. They're not just photos, they're stories, experiences. That's why they hit hard. Objectivity doesn't evoke change, feeling does.
It's that very subjectivity, that very bias, that makes Capa's work compelling. He wasn't standing back, he was in the trenches, living the war. You can't tell me that detachment could convey the same truth. His work was poetry, a visceral punch. In love and war, he said, and you feel it in every shot. But where do we draw the line? Capa's Romanticism, this infusion of personal sentiment, risks glamorizing what should not be. War is hell, not a stage for heroics or sentimental indulgence. Our duty is to document, not to romanticize or vilify based on our perceptions.
Ah, but therein lies the rub. Art is perception. Capa's romanticism is merely his lens on the world. To strip that away would be to strip away the artist himself. The world doesn't need another cold, calculated lens. It needs the eye that sees the soul in the suffering, the heart in the horror.
Our lenses are indeed our voices. Capa's voice was unmistakably loud, clear, and human. Whether or not he crossed lines or blurred them, his impact is undeniable. It seems Capa's work, through its very subjectivity, invites us to explore the complexity of the human condition, perhaps reminding us that war at its core is a profoundly human experience. Let's delve into Capa's Romanticism and its impact on modern war photography. Robert, your work often intersects the brutal with the beautiful. How do you see Capa's romantic approach influencing today's war imagery?
Capa had this way of blending the visceral realities of war with an almost tender narrative. You look at his photos and you see the horror, but you also see the humanity. In my travels, capturing the ordinary in extraordinary circumstances, I felt that. Capa didn't just shoot pictures, he told stories, the kind that grip you and won't let go. It's a lesson in how powerful a photo can be when it's fueled by the heart as much as by the eye.
Romanticism in war photography. Romanticizing war is dangerous. Capa indeed captured humanity, but let's not forget, war is hell. His images are stark, yes, but to call them romantic, that's an embellishment. War photographers now must avoid glorifying what should never be glorified. Our duty is to document, not beautify.
I disagree, Helmut. There's a distinction to be made between romanticizing and imparting emotional depth. Capa understood the gravity of war, yet through his lens, he managed to convey a sense of hope, of resilience amidst despair. That's not glorification. It's a profound commentary on the human spirit. Isn't that, after all, the essence of photojournalism?
Both of you have points, but let's not sidestep the genuine connection Capa had with his subjects. His camera was his heart extended. Yes, it's romantic, but it's also brutally honest. That's the kind of contradiction modern war photographers grapple with. How to be truthful without being cold, how to be empathetic without being sentimental. Capa was a master at that balancing act.
Capa's romanticism, if we must call it that, injected soul into the skeletal frames of war's aftermath. He made the viewer feel, not just observe. That's the power of true artistry in photography. It transcends the mere mechanical capturing of images and becomes a bridge to understanding. Modern photography owes much to Capa's ability to evoke emotion while confronting reality.
It's clear Capa's approach stirred a spectrum of emotion and thought, influencing not just war photography, but the broader field of photojournalism. His ability to capture the essence of human experience amidst chaos has left an indelible mark, one that each of you, in your unique ways, seems to appreciate and grapple with in your work. Let's discuss Capa's monumental role in founding Magnum Photos and what that legacy means for photojournalism. Henri, you were there at the beginning. Speak to that vision.
The vision. It was rebellion against the gatekeepers. We sought to wrest control from the publishers, to ensure the photographer's eye dictated the story, not the editor's pen. Capa had this fire, this insistence on freedom. It was never just about the photograph, but the story it told, the truth it beheld. Magnum was our fortress for this truth.
But let's not romanticize the past too much. The idea of giving photographers control, it's noble, yes, but look at the industry today. We're flooded with images, with or without Magnum. The ethos of getting close has been bastardized. Capa's intention was purity in storytelling, not just physical closeness.
Control is a double-edged sword. Capa understood the power of the image, but now that power is diluted. Everyone with a smartphone fancies themselves a Capa. The intention behind Magnum was pure, but purity in this digital age is quaint.
Henri, you and Capa pushed for a new reality, but reality is subjective. Magnum's legacy, it's not just in control, but in challenging perception. You aimed for truth, yet all photography is manipulation, of light, of perspective, of narrative. Capa knew this. That was the real innovation of Magnum.
I must jump in. You're missing a critical point. It's about the democratization of storytelling. Yes, everyone has a camera now, but what Capa and Henri did was empower the photographer to tell the story they saw, not what the publishers wanted. That's Magnum's true legacy. The problem isn't too many storytellers, it's too few listeners.
And what of Magnum's commitment to Capa's ethos in today's context? The world's changed, photography has evolved. Does close enough still hold?
Close enough was never just about proximity to the subject. It was about intimacy, understanding, and ultimately about empathy. If the photograph lacks emotion, it's nothing but a document. Capa's ethos is more crucial today than ever. Magnum must evolve, but its soul must remain unchanged. Evolution, yes, but to what end? Magnum and everything after. It's constantly chasing Capa's shadow. The world doesn't just need photographers, it needs poets, rebels, visionaries. Capa didn't just capture the war, he captured the human condition. It's the emotional truth that matters, not the factual accuracy.
Emotional truth. But where's the line? Capa's line was clear, but now we blur it constantly with filters and edits. Magnum was a beacon, but now in the sea of manipulation, what does it stand for? Capa's legacy isn't a shield to hide behind, it's a challenge to meet.
This conversation reveals just how complex Capa's legacy and the foundation of Magnum Photos are. The principles of control, of storytelling, of getting close, they're not static. They evolve as we, as society, evolve. Magnum's story is ongoing, as is Capa's influence on every photographer who believes in the power of the image to tell a truth, their truth. Let's delve into the technical challenges and innovations Capa faced and created, shaping his indelible mark on photography. Man, you've often manipulated your work in the darkroom. How do you think Capa's in-the-field techniques contrast with studio work?
Capa, he mastered the balance of speed and composition under fire. No darkroom trickery there. I warp reality by choice. Capa had reality warped around him by the chaos of war. His quick decisions, his use of the Leica camera with its 35mm film was revolutionary. There was no room for error, no second chances. A darkroom offers control. War offers none.
That's just it, isn't it? Capa's brilliance wasn't just in his eye, but in his hands, in his feet. Moving, always moving. The man knew his settings, knew how to grab life as it happened. We talk ISOs, apertures, we talk technique, but Capa, he was beyond technique. He made those split-second decisions that captured truth.
Yet, let's not romanticize the chaos too much. Technique is paramount, and Capa knew this. His choices in slower shutter speeds in dim light, for example, it wasn't just intuition. It was mastery over his craft, knowing how his choices would affect the grain, the mood of the image.
True, but remember Helmut, Capa said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough. That's not just about physical proximity. It's about an emotional, a visceral understanding of the moment, something no studio can replicate. But you're all missing something critical. Capa's environment dictated his techniques, yes, but it was his vision that guided him. The technical aspects, they were just tools. A photographer must know the rules well so he can break them at the right moment.
And break them he did. We're talking about a man who leaped into the abyss with nothing but a camera. His technique? It was survival. Every shot taken was a risk, a dance with death. We're pontificating here about aperture and film speed, while Capa was out there, rewriting the very language of photography.
It's clear, Capa's technical choices, whether born of necessity or creativity, allowed him to capture the soul of a moment in a way that continues to resonate. As we push the boundaries of photography today, we're still walking paths he charted with every daring shutter click in the midst of chaos.
And let's not forget, it's not just the camera or the film. It's the eye, the heart behind it. Capa's heart beat on every battlefield, and that's something no amount of technical discussion can diminish.
Agreed. Yet we cannot dismiss the skill it takes to translate that heart, that vision, into an image that stands the test of time. Capa's work serves as a masterclass in the balance of form and chaos, a reminder of the potency of technical prowess married to undying passion.
His legacy, then, is not just in the images he captured, but in the lessons he imparted to every photographer who followed. The importance of mastering one's craft to the point where it becomes second nature, allowing the story, the emotion, the raw human experience to take center stage. Let's delve into how Capa's storytelling through images has influenced us, grounding our analysis in his narrative style and the emotional connection he fostered between his subjects and viewers. I find his ability to capture the essence of a moment unparalleled. Thoughts?
The decisive moment isn't just about pressing the shutter at the right second. It's about the story that moment tells. Capa, he understood this deeply. His narratives were raw, unfiltered slices of life. They didn't just show a scene, they immersed the viewer into the story, made them feel the mud and the fear and the hope. Yes, but let's not gloss over the artistry in his compositions. Capa's work was as much about what's outside the frame as what's within it. He mastered the art of suggestion, leaving just enough to the viewer's imagination to complete the story. This, to me, is where his storytelling took flight, less about the physical and more about the ethereal.
Ethereal? Come on, the man was on the ground, in the grit. His storytelling was in the blood on the soldiers' uniforms, in the dirt on the children's faces. It wasn't suggestion, it was reality, plain and harsh. That's what connected people to his photographs. You can't intellectualize that kind of emotional impact.
Emotional impact, sure, but where's the line? We're in the business of truth, not fiction. Capa's storytelling was compelling, but the danger is in romanticizing horror. The story told through a lens should not beautify the tragedy. It should confront and challenge the viewer, not coddle them in a narrative cocoon.
But isn't that the point? Capa's work confronts, yes, but it also humanizes. It's not about beautifying war. It's about infusing humanity into the inhumane. That's the power of his narrative technique. He challenges not by alienation, but by identification. His stories are profound because they are personal.
Interesting perspectives, all. What I gather is that Capa's storytelling technique, whether viewed as a narrative embellishment or a gritty reality, persistently sought to connect, to humanize, and to provoke thought. His stories were indeed profound, not because they were universal, but because they were deeply personal. Each photograph a story unto itself, open to interpretation, yet undeniably powerful in its message. Let's carry these insights into considering the future of war photography in our next discussion. Let's pivot to the digital tide sweeping over photojournalism. How would Capa have navigated this brave new world where everyone with a smartphone fancies themselves a photographer?
The spirit of Capa was to immerse into the trenches of reality. Today, he might have drowned in the sea of instantaneity. Yet I believe he'd have found a way to cut through the noise. The essence isn't the camera, but the eye and heart behind it.
I concur on the essence. Yet, the digital age dilutes the purity of the moment. Capa chased the decisive moment. Today, the world chases likes and retweets. Would he have adapted? Yes, but he'd mourn the loss of patience in crafting a story.
Adaptation? Nonsense. Capa would have led the charge. The man jumped into wars. You think he'd shy from a smartphone? The immediacy and reach of digital could amplify his tales from whispers in the dark to shouts across the globe.
But what of authenticity? The digital realm is rife with manipulation. Capa's ethos stood on the precipice of truth. This age, with its filters and edits, distances us from the raw, unvarnished reality Capa sought to expose.
Let's not be naive. Capa flirted with staging when necessary. Digital just extends the palette. The question isn't about the integrity of the tool, but of the user. The digital age presents new challenges, yes, but also new windows to the human condition.
Truth. Capa's genius lay in storytelling. Stories adapt, they morph with the medium. The digital age, with all its pitfalls, is ripe for the kind of narrative innovation Capa excelled at.
So, amidst this digitization, what remains of the ethical standards Capa held dear? How do we reconcile the need for truth with the manipulative potential of digital tools?
Ethics in photography, digital or not, depend on the individual behind the lens. The medium may evolve, but the moral compass guiding the portrayal of war, suffering, and human dignity must remain steadfast.
The landscape's changed, sure. Everyone's a photographer, but not everyone's a Capa. It's about the why, not the how. Digital, film, doesn't matter. Purpose defines ethics.
And what of the sea of images digitalization has brought upon us? Capa knew the power of a single image. Today's flood risks drowning the message.
The challenge, then, is to rise above, to use this deluge creatively, to make your voice heard. Capa wouldn't have feared digital, he'd have harnessed it.
Then perhaps the future of war photography, in the spirit of Capa, lies not in the rejection of the digital, but in the adaptation to its demands, while holding fast to the timeless principles of storytelling, ethics, and humanity. Well, we've traversed the complexities of Capa's legacy, each from our pointedly unique vantages. Let's draw this to its inevitable close. Reflections. Sharp, not dulled by niceties. Henri?
Capa, he danced with his camera in the abyss of human conflict. We voyeuristically consume these images, but at what cost? His lens captured truth, yes, but at the expense of peace, perhaps. In our quest for purity in photojournalism, his work is a towering beacon and a stark warning. The geometry of a photograph, its composition, should never overshadow the human story it seeks to tell.
Pungent as ever, Henri. Man, your perspective?
Capa's a curious case. He straddled reality and fabrication like no other, making us question not just what we see, but how we see. His work was as much about the unseen, the fear, the anticipation, as about what was captured on film. Whether staged or not, Falling Soldier is emblematic of Capa's dance with truth and myth, art and war, entangled in a revelatory pas de deux.
You're all dressing it up too much. Capa was raw. He got in there, got his hands dirty. He didn't fuss over apertures and f-stops. He felt the moment and shot it. That's photography, that's life. The current digital wave, it's washing away the authenticity Capa stood for. Click, filter, share. Capa's narratives were earned, not curated.
Let's not romanticize struggle and pain. Capa was brilliant, but his brilliance came at a cost. The romanticism of war's tragedy, it's a dangerous game. We've seen where it leads. Our job, to show life, real and unvarnished. Capa did that, but sometimes the myth overtakes the truth. We must tread cautiously on the ground he broke.
Capa knew the power of the image, how it could seduce, manipulate. But he also knew its fragility, its transient hold on truth. We dissect his methods, question his intentions, but miss the essence, his unyielding push against the boundaries of his medium. The debate on authenticity, it's reductive. Capa's legacy is the challenge to see differently, to photograph not just what is in front of us, but what it signifies about our collective humanity.
Spirited as expected. Capa's legacy, it seems, is as multifaceted and contentious as the man himself. His work forces us to confront the uncomfortable, to question not just the world around us, but our role within it as observers, as creators. We leave this table not with definitive answers, but with a deeper inquiry into the nature of truth, the ethics of witnessing, and the enduring power of photography to challenge, reveal, and perhaps ultimately to heal. Thank you, each of you, for this vigorous journey today.